Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I think everyone that's coming is probably here now, just a few minutes after 10, so I think we can get started. Actually, if you're still kind of taking your seat, I would recommend, we're going to be using these monitors. They're not real big, and we're going to have some smaller maps and graphics, so I would recommend maybe sitting, there's a monitor, 2 in the back and then 2 up here in the front, so I would definitely recommend sitting as close as you can to those. So if you'd like to move or get yourself set up at maybe now or as we're getting ready for the next speaker to come on. But thank you very much for coming this morning. My name is Dan McGinn. I'm the city's director of the planning department. I did want to just take a few minutes to recognize we have City Councilman Rudy Garza here in the audience, and I know we have a few other commissioners and with the Planning Commission and maybe some of the other boards that are here. So if you just take a moment to recognize those that have attended, I appreciate that. Just a brief little history on how this came about. Our planning staff, we have several projects kind of in the works, and obviously people have been talking about housing here in the community for some time. So we've reached out to the Real Estate Center out of College Station with just requests for some different data, and this relationship kind of evolved, and we were able to put this together working with them. And I did want to thank Richard Stroop from the Association of Realtors. He was essential in helping us put this together and facilitating that connection for us. So I want to thank him. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Gary Mailer. He's the director of the Real Estate Center, to provide an overview of the center and what they do and introduce his team that he has here in place today. So, Mr. Mailer.
It's an honor to be here. I love Corpus Christi, one of my favorite cities. I worked my way through college down in this area. I even worked on the King Ranch, so it's kind of like homecoming for me. A lot of friends here, a lot of friends in this community. Great place to be. I have a wonderful team of people. We have about 30 full-time equivalents at the center. We're the largest center of our kind in the nation that's affiliated with a university. We conduct studies in all areas related to real estate, urban or rural economics, and this is one of the exciting areas for us in particular because for years the advisory committee, which is appointed by the governor, had hoped that we would be able to address affordable housing. And just in the last few months, we've actually, in about last 6 months, we've really made a big push into this. And you're going to meet not the whole team, but most of the team that actually worked on this project today. The center's funded by a portion of real estate license fees, but we're not beholden to any group. We work with every business group across the state. As Gerald could tell you, our data scientist, we get anecdotal information that developers, big box retailers, oil companies, everyone uses our data and information to make major decisions. We simplified our mission by simply saying we help Texans make better real estate decisions, and that includes policy decisions by policymakers at all levels, county, city, and at the state level as well. So it's an honor to be here. This is a learning process from us. We're going to learn a lot from you and with you today as we go through this. We've debuted a couple of these before, but not in person. So we're all open ears too. So when you talk to us today, we're going to be listening about what we've done in the study. I'd like to introduce my team that's here with me today, and I'm not going to say much more because I want to get right into the numbers and the concepts we're going to present before you. Jim Gaines, sitting back there looking like he's the owner of the whole place, is our chief economist, and Jim's a great man. I've known him for, probably 35 years. We shouldn't even talk about that. We're too old. Yeah, too long. That's a good way of putting it. Gerald Clausen, here on the front, is our data scientist, the first data scientist on the Texas A&M campus, by the way, and Claire Losey. Claire Losey is one of our graduate students who's working on a PhD, and I've told her I'm going to position her to be the expert in affordable housing in the state, and I think she already is. Claire, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. It is truly our honor, and as Gary said, we look very much forward to hearing your perspective and learning more from you than you'll learn from us. So just to kick the presentation off, I'd like to provide a brief overview of what I'll be discussing today. The first of which is a background to Corpus Christi, so just an overview of the demographic profile of both the city and the county. Then I'll be delving into owner-occupied housing affordability before discussing renter-occupied housing affordability. Then we'll be touching briefly on future housing needs, as well as the qualitative component of housing within the city and the county, followed by our concluding remarks. In terms of the overall demographic profile of both the city and the county very closely resembles the city in that the city houses the majority of the population at about 325,000 people, while the county is only slightly bigger at 360,000 people. So clearly the majority of people within Nueces County live within the city boundary. There are approximately 115 households within the city, so the average household size is about 2.8 people, so approximately 3 people per household. The median family income, this is derived from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which computes their own estimate of the median family income for the purposes of determining the equivalent assisted housing program allotments. And their number for the Corpus Christi MSA is actually $63,100. And so since that median family income number applies to both the city and the county, we'll be using it for both regions. In terms of the breakdown between owner and renter occupied units, the greater proportion of units within both the city and county are owner occupied at approximately 60%. So just to provide a brief overview of the city and county. So now to delve a little bit more into the owner occupied side of things. Single family really dominates both the city and the county. You can see it just over 90% within both regions. Single family housing is the primary force of owner-occupied housing within this area. Condos and townhomes comprise a very small proportion of housing, and they're primarily along Mustang Island and then more south towards Flower Bluff. This map depicts the distribution of the owner-occupied housing stock. So you can see that single family in blue is really scattered throughout both the city and the county. So the city is that pink or purple boundary that you see on the map, and most of the single family housing within the county is within the city boundary. And then condos and townhomes are scattered throughout the city, but primarily lie along Mustang Island towards the northern portion, actually where the city of Port Aransas is. So that just provides the spatial distribution to give you an idea of where all the single family homes are. In terms of the renter-occupied housing stock, the majority of rental units are actually 1 to 4 rentals at about 60%. So you aren't seeing the large-scale multi-family development that you might in a larger city such as Austin or Dallas. Actually, the smaller rental units are what really dominate the market here. Again, speaking of the larger multifamily units, those would comprise the 50 or more category, and that's a fairly small portion of about 8% within the city and the county. So really, in this case, single-family rentals play a large role within the market, and so you probably have mom-and-pop investors who are coming in and purchasing just one or maybe a few homes and then flipping them and renting them out, leasing them out to a household. This map depicts the spatial distribution of renter-occupied housing. So the darker blue depicts the highest number of rental units. So clearly along Mustang Island, you see a very high number of rental units. This is not surprising given the tourism within that area. But also towards the southern portion of the city, you see some dominance of rental units. And then more towards the outer boundaries of the city and then going into the county, you really don't have as many rental units, especially given the wide geographic area that those census tracts encompass. There's just not the same dominance of rental units. Now to delve into how we really classified our income cohorts. So the Department of Housing and Urban Development has historically classified low-income households into 3 distinct categories, the first of which are extremely low-income households, the second is very low-income households, and the third is low-income households. Extremely low-income households typically earn between 0 and 30% of the area median family income, while very low-income households typically earn between 31 and 50% of the area median family income, and low-income households earn between 51 and 80% of the area median family income. However, within the city of Corpus Christi, it's a little bit different in that the extremely low-income cohort, that income category, actually encompasses households that earn between 0 and 39% of the area median family income. And these cohorts are based on HUD's classification of the median family income and how they determine the allocation of assisted housing projects within the city. So these income cohorts are derived directly from HUD. The very low income cohort, it's the smallest cohort in that it only encompasses between 40 and households earning between 40 and 49% of the median family income, while the low-income households are earning between 50 and 79%. The workforce and market rate households are defined more colloquial speaking. There more so are definitions of what we would consider to be workforce and market rate housing. Workforce housing is typically applies to households earning between 80 and 120% of the area median family income, so we stuck with that general definition in applying our own definition to the income cohort. And then market rate, we're just considering those households as any household that earns over 120% of the area median family income. In terms of the income ranges, these are based, again, on HUD's own estimates of these incomes. So you can see that extremely low-income households are earning between about $0 and $25,000, while very low-income households are earning about $25,000 to $31,000, and low-income households are earning approximately $31,000 to $50,000. And so in terms of the proportion of households within each income cohort, you have a fairly significant proportion within the market rate category, which is not surprising. Just mathematically, you're going to see a high percentage of households within this cohort since it encompasses that entire upper boundary past 120%. But there's also a significant proportion of households within the extremely low income cohort. So just to keep that in mind in terms of both the city and county when we're speaking of the different income cohorts, I'm referring to those 5 on the screen. In terms of the breakdown of income cohorts by housing type, there is unsurprisingly a higher proportion of extremely low-income households who are living in rental units, who are occupying renter-occupied housing. And then there is a lower proportion of market rate households who are living in rental units. So approximately 34% of the extremely low-income cohorts, households earning within the extremely low-income cohort, are living in the rental-occupied housing, versus market rate households are earning about, or are within the 20% of renter-occupied housing. So just to give you a breakdown of that. And in terms of the owner-occupied housing stock within the city of Corpus Christi, those households that are within the extremely low-income cohort, they only occupy 16% of the owner-occupied households. So they're a very small share of the homeowner market, just to keep that clear, while the majority of homeowners within the city are going to be those who are earning within the market rate income cohort. In terms of the median family income in Nueces County, this map depicts the MFI by census tract in 2016. So you can see that The census tracts in red are the higher income cohorts, or excuse me, the highest income cohort. So the very red census tracts depict households that are in terms of the median family income earning above that $75,000 threshold. So these are the wealthiest income tracts in Nueces County, and so this is primarily where you're going to see your highest dollar value housing. Whereas the census tracts that are in blue and green are your two lowest income census tracts. So your extremely low income households and your very low income households. And these are primarily within the city. I think you can see them in and around downtown is where you have your lowest median family income. And then the yellow is the mid-range income cohort. So that's households that are within the low income cohort. So this just provides the spatial distribution of median family income. Okay, in terms of defining housing affordability, there are several different methodologies to calculate housing affordability, but in general, the term is used to consider the relationship between home price or rent and either median family income or median household income. And so housing affordability is really weighing the relationship between housing costs and housing income. And so in our definition, we are defining housing affordability as the measure between the measure of the relationship between home price or rent and that median family or household income. And there are different ways, again, to compute housing affordability, but this is how we are defining this within our methodology. In terms of the difference between owner-occupied and renter-occupied housing affordability, owner-occupied affordability generally considers the additional expenses associated with homeownership, whereas rental-occupied housing affordability typically does not consider the additional expenses of renting, such as renter's insurance or utilities. So in our measure of owner-occupied housing affordability, we're including not only home price and income, but also property taxes, property insurance, and utilities, as well as the qualifying factors that are needed to obtain a home purchase loan. And so there's a bit of a distinction between owner-occupied and renter-occupied affordability in that sense, in the consideration of the additional expenses of housing. In terms of our owner-occupied housing affordability, we are really calculating the required income that a household must earn in order to obtain a mortgage loan for a particular priced home. And we measure this specifically through the Housing Affordability Index. An index value of 1 indicates that a family or household earning the median family income would be able to qualify for the median priced home. So any number above 1 indicates that a family earning the median income could qualify for the median priced home, and then any number below 1 indicates that a family earning the median family income would not be able to qualify for the median home price. In terms of renter-occupied housing affordability, we're actually using the Department of Housing and Urban Development's own methodology for calculating renter-occupied housing affordability. They use the 30% housing cost to income measure. So in essence, a household is considered cost burdened if it spends more than 30% of its income on rent. So just as the distinction between those two methodologies. I will now delve into owner-occupied housing affordability, and then we'll move into renter-occupied housing affordability. So just to keep in mind, everything that you see within this section pertains to homeownership. In terms of owner-occupied housing affordability in the Corpus Christi MSA, there has been an overall decline in housing affordability since the end of the Great Recession, so since approximately 2011. You can see that the blue line depicts the median home price, while the orange shows the median family income. The orange is the bottom line. And there's been a widening gap, really since approximately 2011, between median home price and median family income. This indicates that a family earning the median income cannot afford the same priced home in 2017 that they likely could in 2011, i.e. it is becoming more difficult for families to qualify for housing and to obtain homeownership. However, that being said, housing does remain relatively affordable within the Corpus Christi MSA. As I spoke of before, the Housing Affordability Index really shows that in terms of owner-occupied housing, overall, the MSA has performed fairly well, even since the Great Recession. So again, any value above 1 indicates that housing is relatively affordable, i.e. a family earning the median income could qualify for the median priced home. So you see that the values are well above 1 and have remained so since 2006, since the onset of the Great Recession. And in terms of how Corpus Christi stacks up to comparable regions, actually Corpus has performed fairly well in terms of housing affordability. You can see that Brownsville, Harlingen, McAllen, Edinburgh, and Mission, and even San Antonio, New Braunfels are having lower HIAIs, or housing affordability indices, which indicates that housing within these regions is less affordable than that of the city of Corpus Christi. So in terms of the state and other similar metros, Corpus is performing relatively well. However, that being said, the Housing Affordability Index is a measure of housing for all residents within a city, so it doesn't necessarily depict the housing affordability situation for lower income households. And so within our presentation, we've broken down into housing affordability for lower income households to gain more of a sense of the specific affordability metrics for those households. In terms of home price appreciation within the Corpus Christi MSA, really home price appreciation has skyrocketed since the end of the Great Recession. And Corpus Christi did not suffer extremely deleterious impacts from the Great Recession as we saw throughout the nation in large cities, and particularly in states like California and Nevada and Florida. Corpus actually was not as heavily hit by the Great Recession. You can see that small dip in 2010 in home price appreciation. But really what hit Corpus was the oil bust in the late 80s. You can see that the most significant decline in home price appreciation was around 1987 and 1988 during the oil bust. So just to provide a perspective on home price appreciation. The 7-year average is 3.5%. Again, going back to the fact that home prices have really increased more over the past 7 years than they did prior to that, which is putting a strain on affordability. Now to look at residential sales activity within the county. The red line depicts the home prices sold within the $0 to $70,000 range, and then the green line depicts homes sold within the $70,000 to approximately $100,000 price range. And then the blue line towards the top depicts homes sold within the $100,000 to $150,000 price range. So you can see that from 2011 to 2017, the residential sales activity, or the percent of total homes sold within the 3 lowest price brackets, has really declined. And so what you're seeing is now a push towards the higher priced homes, particularly the $200,000 to $300,000 homes, which are depicted by the orange line. There's just been a tremendous increase in the percentage of homes sold in comparison to the total number of homes sold within this price cohort. So again, this places a strain on affordability with fewer homes available within the most affordable price cohorts, being the $0 to $150,000 range. And a similar trend is seen within the city of Corpus Christi. You again can see that the blue, red, and green lines, which depict home prices sold, or homes sold within the price cohorts of $0 to $150,000, have really declined since the end of the Great Recession. And so households in lower income cohorts are now struggling more to afford owner-occupied housing within both the city and the county. This map depicts the distribution of all residential sales, being single-family townhome and condo, that occurred within both the city and the county. And the blue, purple, and orange are homes sold within the $100,000 to $300,000 price cohorts. So again, a heavy dominance of purple and orange dots. The purple is homes sold between $150,000 and $200,000. And also what this map depicts is that the majority of home sales are occurring in really the southern portion of the city. So you see very few homes that are being sold in and around downtown in the refineries, so even on towards the west side of the city. So the majority of home sales are occurring in the southern portion of the city. In terms of the new residential sales activity, and we should emphasize that this data depicts home sales through the multiple listing service, so it might not be fully representative of the lowest price homes, but we consider it to be a fairly accurate depiction of the overall market since this is a larger geography. For the county, new home sales within the lowest price brackets have really been non-existent for the past 7 years since 2010. You see that you probably can't even see the red line. It's at the very bottom, almost along the 0% axis. But the green line also it's the price cohort of $70,000 to $100,000. So very, very few new homes are being sold within the most affordable price cohorts, which is again straining affordability for your lower income households, for your lowest income cohorts. So this tremendous decline, even in this purple line, is $150,000 to $200,000. Even a tremendous decline within that price cohort is straining affordability too for your more middle range income earners. Meanwhile, there's been a tremendous uptick in homes sold within the $200,000 to $300,000 price cohort. And so this suggests that builders are now moving more towards the higher priced homes and supplying more higher priced inventories. So the ability of a low income household to purchase a new residential property will be very, very difficult. A similar trend is seen within the city of Corpus Christi, this decline in the number of new homes sold within the lowest price cohorts and an uptick in the higher priced cohorts. So again, builders are moving more towards the higher priced stock, straining affordability for your lower income cohorts. This map depicts the number and distribution of new residential sales within both the city and the county. So again, you can see that the majority of new home sales are occurring within the southern portion of the city, more towards Flower Bluff and in and along the Oso Bay, and then too on the southern tip of Mustang Island. So very, very little new residential sales have occurred in and around downtown. So just to provide an overview of that. In all, housing affordability is relatively positive for the city and the county. As we saw with the Housing Affordability Index, overall, Corpus Christi and Nueces County remain affordable to a family earning the median income. However, this does not mean that affordability is necessarily optimistic for your lower income cohorts. And this does not mean that there isn't that strain on your lowest income cohorts in terms of purchasing single family homes, townhomes, or condominiums. Now, in terms of how we modeled owner-occupied housing affordability, we had several questions that we asked. The first of which is, what is affordable? i.e., what can households within each of the 5 income cohorts reasonably afford? And this is a fairly difficult question to answer given the range in methodologies used to calculate owner-occupied housing affordability and the importance of paying attention to the local factors that are influencing the housing market within Corpus Christi and that are unique to this market. So in terms of deriving how much house a family can afford within the city and the county, we made several assumptions in our model. The first of which is that the interest rate is approximately 4%. So this has been a fairly standard interest rate since the end of the Great Recession. The mortgage interest rate has hovered really between 3 and 4.25%. So this falls pretty closely in line with that. The loan-to-value ratio, which is a measure of essentially how much home a household can obtain with their down payment, so it's the converse relationship to that, is 89.5%. And then the qualifying ratio is approximately 40%. The qualifying ratio here depicted is the back-end qualifying ratio, which means that we're looking at total household debt to total household income. So it's the consideration of your mortgage debt, car loans, credit card loans, student loan debt, etc. The sum of total household debt to total household income. So that's approximately 40%. And then in terms of the annual expenses, if you remember when I was talking about owner-occupied housing affordability, it considers the additional expenses associated with homeownership, that being property taxes, homeowners insurance, and utilities. And so our inclusion of that within this model came out to about 6%. We assumed approximately 3% of taxes, 1% for insurance, and approximately 2% for utilities. And in terms of that 6%, it's a measure of the total home value for a particular year. And so this means that within a given year, a homeowner is expected to pay approximately 6% of their home value on mortgage, property insurance, on property taxes, and utilities. And then in terms of really quantifying how much a family earning a particular income can afford, the multiplier that we derived was approximately 3.51. And so if you multiply that by family income, you can derive the maximum home price that is reasonably affordable to a family earning that income. And so you can see that for a family earning an income of $100,000, they can afford a maximum home price of approximately $350,000. And so again, the multiplier that we derived was based on the assumptions that we made in the prior slide to our model. The home price to income multiplier, typically the range falls between 3.0 and 4.0 for what is considered affordable to a household. If the multiplier is 4.0 or above, you're veering into the unaffordable range and home prices that are not going to be sustainable. So we feel fairly comfortable with our 3.5 multiplier to estimate owner-occupied housing affordability. In terms of how much families that fall within each income cohort can earn, you can see that the extremely low income cohort can afford a home price between $0 and approximately $87,000. And that $87,000 is the upper limit on the owner-occupied affordability for that household. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the majority of households within this cohort are going to be spending close to that amount. It means that there's a distribution of prices within this, home prices within this cohort that will be affordable to those households. In terms of the very low income cohort, they can afford home prices of approximately $87,000 to $110,000. And then your low-income households, so households earning between 50 and 80% of the median family income, can afford a home priced approximately $110,000 to $175,000. And then your workforce households can afford a home of approximately $175,000 to $266,000. And then your market rate households can reasonably afford a home priced $266,000 or above. There's no upper limit on the market rate households. So just to provide an indication of how we quantified affordability and then what we're considering affordable to each income cohort, this slide is really what sums that up. Now, in terms of the imbalance in housing within both the city and the county, or the supply and demand of owner-occupied housing, for the county, now this slide is based on the total housing stock. So the numbers reflected here are based on the Nueces County Appraisal District data, i.e. we are looking at the total housing available, or excuse me, total housing that is within the price ranges affordable to each income cohort. So that this might not mean that these homes are available. If it's representing the total housing stock, then the majority of these homes are going to be already occupied and not on the market. And so in terms of quantifying affordability for these income cohorts, we estimated that 16.3% of owner-occupied households are extremely low-income owners, and then approximately 22.9% of the owner-occupied housing stock within Nueces County is actually affordable to this income cohort, which means that there is actually an oversupply of the total housing stock that is affordable to this income cohort. You can see that for all income cohorts, there's actually an oversupply of owner-occupied housing, with the exception of the market rate households, for which there is an undersupply of approximately 33,000 homes or owner-occupied units, based on the higher proportion of owner-occupied households that exist within this particular income cohort versus the percent of owner-occupied stock within this income cohort. However, that being said, these numbers are based, again, on what is affordable to each income cohort, i.e. they do not consider what is actually on the market or available to all of the income cohorts, which I will delve into later. But in terms of what has been quantified from the Nueces County Appraisal District data, this is what we're seeing in terms of an over and undersupply, really where the undersupply is concentrated in the market rate household cohort, income cohort. And a similar pattern is seen within Corpus Christi, where you have the undersupply for the market rate households, and then the oversupply within the other 4 lower income cohorts. But as I said before, this does not consider the availability of owner-occupied housing. So for this, we say, but wait. Now, in terms of quantifying what is available to all income cohorts, i.e. what has actually been sold, so what has been flowing through the market, you can see that there's an undersupply of homes sold to the lowest income cohort. So for those extremely low income earners, there's just not the supply of homes within the $0 to $87,000 price range that is being sold, that is on the market to them. And there's, again, an undersupply for the market rate households, but this undersupply is significantly less than the undersupply we saw using the total housing stock versus just the homes sold. So again, there's an undersupply for your highest and then your lowest income cohorts. But overall, this pattern, which is seen as well in the city of Corpus Christi, would indicate that the strain on affordability is really within that lowest price cohort. That strain on owner-occupied affordability is really within that lowest price cohort. So in summary, within this section, we really depicted the difference between what is affordable, i.e. the total housing stock, versus what is actually available, so what has been sold to homeowners. And so with affordability, we saw that the highest income cohort is facing a shortage of supply within price ranges that are affordable to their income cohort. So it would suggest that households within this income cohort are spending less on owner-occupied housing than they could reasonably afford. And so they're buying down, i.e. they're trickling into the stock of housing that's affordable to the lower income cohorts. Versus availability, which we're looking at the homes sold, so the homes that have circulated on the market, and in which we saw a shortage in supply for the lowest and the highest income cohorts. So this indicates that your lowest income cohort has had to spend more on owner-occupied housing in order to qualify for that housing than they could reasonably afford, i.e. they're having to buy homes outside of their price range. Now, in terms of where is the supply of housing by income cohort. So this map depicts the distribution of homes that are affordable to each income cohort. So the darkest red depicts homes that are affordable to your market rate households, so that market rate income cohort. So homes priced $266,000 and above, whereas your light yellow, which is concentrated in and around downtown, so within the central city, those depict homes that have a market value of between $0 and approximately $87,000. So this again depicts your total housing stock. This is based on Nueces County Appraisal District data and does not differentiate between what is currently occupied versus what is on the market, i.e. it depicts all of your households within the city and the county. And so you can see that your highest values are within the southern portion of the city and then along Mustang Island. And then your lowest value homes are really within the central city, within the downtown area and slightly to the west of downtown. And just to zoom in on the city of Corpus Christi so that you all can see this a little bit better. Again, the concentration of your highest value homes in the southern and eastern portion of Corpus Christi, and then the concentration of your lowest value homes within the downtown region. And then also you have several very high value homes along Ocean Drive. But overall, the majority of your highest value homes are in southern and eastern Corpus Christi. In terms of where home buyers are actually purchasing homes within Corpus Christi and Nueces County, this question provides indication of particularly where low-income households have actually purchased housing. So instead of looking at simply what is affordable to them versus what is available to them, this question really considers the mortgage financing that low-income households have obtained, i.e. the number of mortgage loan originations, particularly to low-income households. So in terms of home purchase originations in Nueces County from 2011 to 2017, we can see that the majority of home loan originations have been for conventional purchase loans at about 52% of total loans. The median loan amount for conventional loans has been approximately $160,000, while the median applicant income has actually been $90,000. So this is a very high applicant income. So the median family income within the city of Corpus is $63,100. And so this would indicate that applicants have to be well above the median family income in order to qualify for a home purchase loan. In terms of the FHA loans that have been insured in Nueces County, there's a fairly significant proportion of these loans at 30% of total loans. The median loan amount for FHA insured loans has been approximately $150,000, and the median applicant income has been $63,000. So this very closely resembles the median family income for Corpus Christi. So FHA insured loans are going to be more affordable to your lower income buyers, in particular your first time buyers, because the lower down payment associated with FHA loans makes them more affordable to those two particular households. The average down payment for FHA insured loans is approximately 3.5%. So for a $100,000 house, you would only need a down payment of about $3,500 in order to qualify for your purchase loan. In terms of FSA and RHS guaranteed loans, this is your rural housing service loans. So it's really not surprising that you're seeing only 10 loans within this category, because it applies more towards your rural home loans. For your VA guaranteed loans, these constitute approximately 18% of total loans within Corpus Christi, and the median loan amount for these loans is nearing $200,000, which puts the median applicant income at about $78,000. And the reason that the median applicant income for your VA guaranteed loans is lower than that of your conventional loans is, again, with your VA loans, you're seeing a lower down payment requirement. Sometimes you only have to put 2% down to qualify for a VA loan. And so the average loan to value ratio for these at about 98% means that for a $100,000 home, you'd only need a down payment of $2,000. So these loans are also more affordable to your low income and your first time home buyers, like the FHA insured loans. And then your conventional loans, which typically have an LTV of about 80%, those go more towards your higher income or your repeat home buyers. In terms of the home purchase originations in Nueces County by income cohort, this slide is really what has told us the most about housing within Corpus Christi in terms of owner-occupied housing. Only 24 home purchase loans have been originated to your extremely low-income cohort from 2011 to 2017. And so this is an extremely low number of loans that have been originated to this cohort, which suggests that homeownership is virtually out of reach for this income cohort. They are going to face significant financial obstacles in qualifying for a home purchase loan. The same situation is seen with your very low-income households. They've only been able to purchase 375 homes using the home purchase originations, and so this puts them at about 1.8% of total originations. Again, just an extremely small sample, an extremely small number of the total purchase originations within Nueces County. However, unsurprisingly, the highest proportion of home purchase originations have gone to your market rate households. So households earning 121 or 120% and above of median family income. So this slide really says a lot about owner-occupied housing affordability, and that, again, it is going to be very difficult for your lowest income cohorts to obtain home ownership. This map depicts the number of home purchase originations by census tract in 2017. And so your lighter yellow depicts a lower number of home purchase originations within that census tract, whereas the darker blue, that kind of navy blue, depicts the highest number of home purchase loans. And so you can see that the highest number of home purchase originations have been along Mustang Island and the southern and eastern portions of the city. A very low number of home purchase originations have occurred in and around downtown. Now to veer into renter-occupied housing affordability. Just to provide a brief overview, we used the Department of Housing and Urban Development's methodology to calculate renter-occupied housing affordability. So again, we're looking at that cost burden of households who are spending more than 30% of their income on rent. We're considering those households to be cost burdened. In terms of how much rent a family can afford or could afford in 2017, for your extremely low income cohorts, they can afford a maximum rent of about $600. Your very low income cohort, that rent range that's affordable is approximately $600 to $800 per month. And then for your low income households, the range in rent that is affordable to them is from approximately $800 to $1,200 per month. Your market rate households can actually afford rents of about $850 and above per month. So just to provide an overview of the rents that are affordable to each income cohort. The median rent in Corpus Christi was actually $970 in 2017, so that provides indication of where we stand in terms of rent. Now to talk about the housing imbalance, or the supply and demand of renter-occupied housing within the county. you see the greatest proportion of renters within that extremely low income cohort, which is unsurprising given that we just saw the strain on affordability to this income cohort for owner-occupied housing. So you're going to see a higher proportion of extremely low-income households within renter-occupied units. And in terms of the under and oversupply, you see an undersupply for both your lowest and your highest income cohorts. So there is a definite need to generate more affordable rental housing for your lowest income cohort. And again, what we're likely seeing is that your market rate households are renting units that are within the 4 lower income cohorts, i.e. they are renting down. And so without that supply of rental units that is affordable to your market rate households, they're going to eat into the supply of rental units that are actually affordable to your lower income cohorts. A similar trend is seen within Corpus Christi, where you have the undersupply of rental units for both your lowest and your highest income cohorts. So again, the dominance of renter-occupied households is within the lowest income cohort, your extremely low-income households, versus the other cohorts, in which there's actually an oversupply of rental units for your very low-income to your workforce households. And so again, you're probably seeing that your lowest income cohort is spending more on rental units than what they can reasonably afford, while your highest income cohort is spending less on rental units than what they can reasonably afford. Now, in terms of assessing future housing needs, we use data from the Texas Water Development Board to indicate that the expected population of Nueces County is approximately 375,000 people by 2020, and will be approximately 407,000 people by 2030. So this computes to an average annual growth rate of approximately 1%. It's slightly less at 0.89%, but very close to 1% annual growth. And then since 2005, the average household size has hovered between 2.64 and 2.78. If you recall in the beginning of the presentation, I spoke of both population and households, and the average household size in 2017 was about 2.8. And then, so assuming that the average household size falls within this range at 2.71, then the county needs to add, on average, 1,230 additional housing units each year in order to keep pace with population growth. And so in terms of the additional housing units that need to be added, this can be in the form of either owner or rental units. We aren't computing the number of units that need to be added within those specific categories. This is just representative of the total number of units that needs to be added, those 1,230 units. Over the past 7 years, so since the end of the Great Recession, i.e. 2011, building permits have averaged approximately 1,400 annually. And so this suggests that actually the city has been fairly on track with adding new housing units each year. And you can see from this graph that building permits in Nueces County peaked, in the early 80s due to the changes to the tax code, particularly for commercial properties. You see that huge spike in the number of multifamily permits within the early 80s. And then once the revisions to the tax code were made in the mid 80s, then there's just this tremendous decline in the number of permits, particularly for multifamily. But really since the end of the Great Recession, so around 2011, you've seen an uptick in your multifamily units, and then followed by a tremendous downcline in multifamily units, while the number of single-family permits has remained fairly steady since really the mid-80s. But your multifamily properties, they go through cycles where you're going to see a tremendous uptick in the number of permits followed by a fairly precipitous downcline. In terms of the single-family median lot size, This has been fairly constant within Corpus Christi. This graph goes back to 1946. And so from 1946 to 2015, you can see that builders have actually kept lot size, the single-family median lot size, fairly consistent. So there haven't been many changes to the lot size that builders have developed for single-family homes. However, there has been an increase in the single-family median living area. So what this really means is that builders haven't increased their lot size, but are now increasing the living area within single-family homes. And this actually puts a strain on affordability because with each additional square foot that you're adding to a house, then you're requiring the consumer, i.e. the home buyer, to pay an additional premium for each square foot that's added to that house. So although the lot size really hasn't changed over the past several decades, the median living area has increased. So now home buyers are spending more on homes due to the increase in the living area. So again, you're seeing lower affordability due to the increase in the median living area. And to supply affordable housing, builders may have to make compensations either with lot size or with the living area, i.e. they may have to reduce either the lot size or the living area in order to provide more affordable options to consumers, to home buyers. Now to speak a little bit on housing and neighborhood quality. So if you haven't noticed, none of our models that I have previously discussed included any qualitative component, i.e. any sort of assessment on the quality of either the housing stock or the neighborhood in which it is situated. However, it is extremely important to consider both housing and neighborhood quality when you are considering either owner-occupied or rental-occupied units. Just because a home is affordable does not mean that it is of safe or decent quality for occupancy, i.e. just because you can purchase a home doesn't necessarily mean that it will produce the same benefits for that household as if it were of higher quality. And so we know that higher quality homes are going to be your higher value homes, whereas your lower quality homes are likely to be of lower value. And so it is important to consider quality in terms of housing affordability because it really does make a distinction between what households will actually occupy instead of what is simply affordable to those households. And in terms of neighborhood quality, what we're really thinking of is access to good schools, jobs, amenities such as parks, and then also your healthcare resources, things of that nature. All of the aspects that make a neighborhood really well developed and really beneficial to the people who live in that neighborhood. Housing and neighborhood quality is going to be more of an issue for your lower income cohorts. They are going more likely to suffer from lower housing quality and lower neighborhood quality than your higher income cohorts. So again, it's extremely important that we consider quality in our assessments of affordability. In terms of the literature on housing and neighborhood quality, really there was a push by the Department of Housing and Urban Development in the 1990s and 2000s to improve the neighborhood quality of the public housing projects that they owned and operated, that HUD owned and operated. And really, through this, they recognized that place matters, or neighborhood matters, i.e. that the neighborhood in which a household resides plays a significant role in determining the household and life outcomes for that particular unit. And what we really mean is that living in a neighborhood with higher access to good schools, jobs, amenities, etc., is more likely to improve the household and life outcomes for that particular unit. Homeownership in high-quality neighborhoods, again, is going to be harder to obtain for your lower income cohorts. And so it is really important to consider quality in terms of how it can improve the ability of low-income cohorts to maybe even induce upward mobility so that low-income cohorts don't have to stay within that cohort and can instead graduate into the higher income cohorts. This chart depicts really why neighborhood matters. And so in terms of low-income households, if you take any particular low-income household, we know that that household is likely to have limited financial resources and be of lower educational attainment. If that low-income household were to reside in a neighborhood of poor quality, then that household faces lower access to good schools, jobs, amenities, and resources, and higher exposure to crime. So that reduces the opportunities to that particular household and will likely result in lower household outcomes. However, if that same low-income household were to reside in a high-quality neighborhood, then that household will face greater access to the good schools, jobs, and healthcare that are associated with higher quality neighborhoods, as well as lower exposure to crime. And this means that that household will have more opportunities for upward mobility, and its household outcomes will likely be improved as a result of living in that high quality neighborhood. So just as a subjective measure of quality, in terms of a way to assess housing quality within Corpus Christi, we use the age of owner-occupied housing. So the darker blue, that navy blue, depicts homes that were built in 2016 or later, whereas the beige, which is a bit hard to see, are homes that are built before 1940. So the darker blue you can see again concentrated along the southern and eastern portion of Corpus Christi, whereas your older homes are really concentrated in and around downtown. And so this is an indicator that housing quality is going to be somewhat lower in the in central city Corpus Christi versus slightly higher in your homes that are outside of downtown towards the southern and eastern portions of the city. This map is just a zoomed in view really of downtown Corpus Christi. So again, you can see that your younger homes are in the southern and eastern portions, and then your older homes really are concentrated in and around downtown Corpus. I will now hand it over to Gerald. He will discuss gentrification very briefly.
Right. Thank you, Claire. I want to talk a little bit about what gentrification looks like, and I want to contrast Travis County with Nueces County. This chart here, if you can picture in your mind, from the left, homes built in 1946, okay, and I divided the housing stock in Travis County by each year the home was built. Picture in your mind where the homes built between, say, 1946 and 1956. Picture in your mind in Travis County where they're located. I'll give you a little hint. It's close to downtown. But the land under those houses is almost $38 a foot per square foot under those. You can't build, you can't replace those houses with affordable houses when land is running anywhere from $25 to $35 a foot. Okay, and as the newer homes are built, the land comes down to about $7 a foot. When you look at the red line, which is the improvements, a home built in the 40s and 50s, from an appraisal perspective, the value of the structure is not that different between a home built decades ago and a home built today. The primary driver in the difference of the value of properties is all about the land. Well, here's a picture of what that looks like. So single-family land that's greater than or equal to $25 a foot is the yellow. Single-family land that is less than $7 a foot is the red. That's what gentrification looks like. What does gentrification do? It makes it difficult for the people who have been living in their neighborhoods for a long period of time to continue living there because values escalate, property taxes escalate, and they get squeezed out of their neighborhoods because they can't afford the property taxes and they can't afford anything nearby. So where are they left? What are they left to do? In Travis County, they're left to migrate to the far outreaches of the county to purchase housing that's more affordable, and then they're left with large commutes to get to their jobs where they used to live. Okay? Now, is gentrification a positive thing? When it displaces people from their communities and their jobs because they can no longer afford, okay? So that's a challenge that Travis County is dealing with. Now let's take a look at Nueces County. This is what Nueces County's land and improvement values look like. The homes built in the 40s and 50s is where the land is the least valuable. So think in your mind where those homes are located. And the homes that are built in the 2000s, the blue line, are in your highest value land, $3 a foot and more. There's a little bit more differentiation in the value of the improvement, probably because the quality of the structures has been allowed to deteriorate, unlike Travis County where those older homes are improved and the value of the structure itself is enhanced. But what does that look like on a map? There's what it looks like. So single-family land that's greater than $4 a foot is along the shoreline, close to the water, and to the south. Land that's less than $3 a foot is closest to downtown. Now, is this good or bad? To me, it's an asset to Corpus Christi. Why? Gentrification makes housing unaffordable to longtime residents of lower income, like we saw in Travis County. But in Corpus Christi, so the higher value homes are located next to the water suburbs, but lower value homes are located near downtown, close to the most jobs. So you have a group of folks living in low value housing that can afford it. And one thing that was very interesting, what Claire shared earlier about, what was it, about 16% of owner-occupied housing are within the lowest income cohort, okay, the poorest. 16% of the housing stock is owned by them, and yet only 24 mortgages have been originated to that group since 2011. So what you see is the people that own the lowest value housing stock is closest to downtown, and they haven't bought or sold because they don't have the income to buy or sell. Okay? But you've got them close to where the jobs are. The only challenge is the quality of the neighborhood, as Claire was talking about, the access to schools and health care is lacking. Okay? And the quality of the structure is lacking. So the challenge for Corpus Christi is to figure out how to improve the household, how to increase housing quality and access to opportunities where those low value homes are located. Don't look at transplanting them out to new locations far away from where they are. Figure out how you can improve the household outcomes for these families where they are. Maybe that's refurbishing neighborhoods. I don't know if you guys are familiar with an organization called World Vision that deals with in other countries, helps lift communities out of poverty. But they're a great model. And maybe we need to come up with a model here in the city of Corpus Christi, teaching parents how to be better parents. improving access to health care. In third world countries, they do it just by giving access to clean water. Well, what are the ways in Corpus Christi that we can improve health care and educate people? Education for children. Really doubling down on improving, the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, back when I was in school. Let's really help folks with that education. And if we can do that with those lower value communities closer to downtown, then you improve the future outcomes for those families. So I'm going to turn it over to Claire.
Thank you very much. So just in conclusion, we've left you with a few thoughts on housing affordability, both owner-occupied and renter-occupied, within the city of Corpus Christi in Nueces County, the primary of which is that there is a strain on housing affordability, both owner and renter-occupied, for households within the lowest income cohort. So your extremely low income families face that housing affordability problem most severely. And then in terms of the construction of new single-family townhome and condominiums, that new residential activity, we have really seen a tremendous decline in price cohorts that are affordable to the lowest income cohorts, and a push for new residential activity in the highest price cohorts. So this will place an increasing strain on affordability moving forward. The highest priced homes are in the suburbs, as Gerald just touched on. That can be used as an asset by the city of Corpus Christi to perhaps improve the housing and neighborhood quality of homes located closer to downtown. And in terms of our concluding remarks, we'd like to leave you with a question. That is, how can we increase the supply of affordable housing while enhancing housing and neighborhood quality? So just something for you to consider as you leave here today. Thank you so much for attending this presentation, and we will now open the floor to any questions that you may have. Yes, I think I saw a question in the back.
Claire, thank you.
Absolutely.
I'd like to know,
Oh, that is a very good question. We did not consider multi-generational housing within our models. However, what you're seeing with the incidence of the home purchase loans that have been originated to your extremely low income cohort, so the lowest income cohort, only those 24 home purchase loans that were originated from 2011 to 2017, indicates that likely the multi-generational households which are living closer to the downtown portion of Corpus Christi, they just aren't selling their home and then purchasing a subsequent home. So there's likely little movement within that particular category of household. Thank you. Yes.
Claire, thank you very much.
No problem.
I assume that your presentation.
Yes.
Karen is posting it, yes.
Okay. Now, the other question
Yes.
is that us who deal with buyers, sellers, run into something that's not included in your model.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the difference between qualify for and actually afford.
Mm-hmm.
Because in your qualify for model,
Mm-hmm.
you only absolute bottom line fixed cost of home ownership. Nothing in that model. Child care, all of those things. So when I have a client 2 wage earners work hours a week, $19.23 an hour to make 40, and to make 100 hour to afford. And when we get into the real ever costs associated with all those have been increased. So we all have a need. Fortunately, we don't have generalized in our analysis because those are in. Right, absolutely. 40% qualifying ratio basically was cost qualifying ratio. Allowing a full back
50%.
up to 55%. Those are case by case individual, so there's no way to monitor those.
Well, and I'll say too that lower income households are more likely to obtain government sponsored enterprise loans, i.e. FHA and VA loans, and those tend to have your higher debt to income ratios, i.e. your higher qualifying ratios, which are going to be upwards of 50 to 55%. And so that doesn't necessarily mean, as you were saying, that it is reasonably affordable for that household to purchase that priced home, but it's what the lender is quantifying the affordability for that low-income household to be.
Yeah, but it's a matter of those of us that die have to make sure that they are not overspending.
Right.
And that's commendable. There's real world budgeting, and you're helping these folks do real world budgeting. And if everybody could do that, that would be.
That's what World Vision does. It educates them about the responsibility.
And personal financial. And so that's an outstanding deal. And, I'm interested if 6% is too low, what's a higher percent? What is it? Do we need to add 3 or 4% to that in the model? Make it 10%. Is that real? Would that be realistic? Because we can certainly make adjustments to incorporate, these other expenses. Well, we'll come to you for the data.
Maybe I'll go around the room starting from the right. Right, and that 6% that we use, we actually, that 3% for taxes, it might actually be closer to 2, and so that would allow for a higher percentage for your insurance. So your insurance could be closer to 2. So that range is not necessarily strictly delineated to 3% property taxes, 1% property insurance, 2% utilities. It's a continuous spectrum, so that 6% is the combination of those 3 additional expenses incurred by home ownership. And again, taxes might be slightly lower, particularly within the city, at closer to 2%, which would allow for higher insurance.
Did you build that 6%?
That's a great point. That's a great point. We take that as a learning point, is that when we're talking about affordability in a given area, that we can build, we could build and customize, the percentages to be more appropriate to the local area. So, I think that's a point from this.
But that being said, any changes to that 6%, any incremental changes, say to increase it to 7 or 8%, would not significantly affect the results of the model. It would make a very small difference. Yes, sir.
Follow up on his comment.
Mm-hmm.
Those homes that tend to be near downtown in the middle cost a lot more to insure.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to homes in the outlying area, which are quicker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Certainly. Thank you.
You can build a new
Right. Well, and that's where the opportunity for renovations and refurbishing the house come into play, wherein you're not necessarily building a new unit, but you're improving the existing physical structure or improving the neighborhood surrounding that structure.
And I think this afternoon, we've got another strategy session. Private sector needs some concessions from the public sector. Maybe the private and public needs to work together to figure out how to make that happen. But I've understood, and that's why it doesn't just end with the data down here. Gary Mailer is going to lead us through folks from different perspectives to try and overcome. Questions, sir?
24 home purchase loans. So, so, so,
But one of my concerns is
well, extremely low income borrowers are more likely to have to compensate for their lower income by either providing a higher down payment or depicting a lower debt to income ratio that then the lender can apply to determine the home price affordable to that particular buyer. What we're seeing with this 24 home purchase originations, that's to your extremely low income cohort. So households earning less than $87,000 a year. In terms of your market rate households,
What was the income level?
they're earning less than 87. Oh, excuse me. They're earning less than $24,000 or $25,000. Sorry.
How many applications come across your desk with folks 24,000 and up?
I'm thinking differently. I work in CDC. It's a different income, so it's a different. I don't get that doesn't make sense.
Well, and also I'll add that this data is from the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And so this data is derived from your larger mortgage origination companies. So it's not necessarily representative of your CDCs. It's more from your large banks like Wells Fargo and Chase, et cetera, that are originating mortgage.
There can still be origination. You could have
No.
seller financing, you could have private financing that may not be incorporated.
Right. So these are originated by your mortgage servicers.
But people within that price range would be able to.
Yes, less than $87,000. Well, and it's not. And two, you have to consider, are households that could afford homes within that price range, are they actually selling and moving, or are they remaining in place? So that's another factor to consider.
Which speaks to the high volume of homes in extremely low, 16% of homes owned, owner occupied, is in the extremely low. They've been in those houses for a long time.
And they
Probably
aren't necessarily moving.
generational Households that pass the house on to the next generation and they're not moving.
In the back.
And then we'll swing back around.
Median. I think that number is significantly higher than our program.
Certainly. So the median family income number, it's $63,100. And that number is derived from the Department of Housing Urban Development. They compute their own estimates of median family income in order to quantify what is affordable to the three lowest income cohorts to basically give assisted housing programs.
That's significantly higher than that.
Well, so the median household income is probably about $10,000 less. That might be the number that you're thinking of. The median family income is always going to be higher than the median household income, and it is going to be significantly higher. So that would definitely make a difference.
HUD actually estimates median family income
And this is based on a 4-person household. So, yeah.
Versus $3 square foot of land. In this area, if you start to more in Houston, dollar area land, much more.
Certainly, and to your point, and the gentleman next to you earlier about considering property insurance for catastrophic events, that is something that we will consider within future research on Corpus Christi.
I would probably, I think, or mention was the new.
No, I'm talking just purely elevation.
Okay, elevation.
Talk about, since they're having to go out there, actually, Corpus Christi proper downtown has 2 bluffs. It's sort of above the station zone.
But
To
the
get further out,
infrastructure, but the infrastructure that the city is putting in place to accommodate more water. The lower value homes.
Well, we're talking about storm hydrology then at that point, is that which?
It's called developer fees. It impacts developer fees, right? The amount that the developer has to pay on the infrastructure.
Yes, over in the corner. Yes. So, yes, that's a very good question. Thank you. So this number is derived from the Texas Water Development Board, and so we could delve further into how they're quantifying the growth rate, but in terms of how we are quantifying it, that's more of a question for them. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes. Sure.
As far as approved loans, basically, like redlining and stuff. If you have good credit, $30,000, you should be able to.
$30,000 income, how much of a house are they going to be able to?
It's households earning $25,000 and less. The affordable price, home price, is $87,000 or less.
So with a $30,000 income.
$7,000. Now, where's that $87,000 house located in Corpus?
But they might be obtaining private financing that is not depicted in this data, because this data is from really mortgage servicers and large mortgage servicers.
I'm thinking, why aren't banks? As long as your DI ratios are in, or your debt to income ratios are, or it's an $80,000 house. Cause of that, is it an educational issue?
Right.
But I'd say, that's your government finance, your financial, your credit requirements, that's, Dodd-Frank, regulatory requirements. Loans like that, the regulators are going to define whether, or going to dictate whether they're going to make that.
And
That was the first. I work in the bank, so I understand how
talk to your regular, ask your regular.
I would contend it's a supply issue.
Yes.
Nothing to go by.
Well,
And not only that, but as we saw in the map, there are a lot of low value.
the question is whether they're
Going to
moving.
want to originate a 30-year mortgage, a 50-year-old house that is low quality in a difficult neighborhood.
The banks aren't wanting to.
Banks, nobody's going to make that loan.
I think you, and I have looked at mine, actually looked at what's for sale. Not be anything close to what this is indicating about what exists. Sale. And last time I looked, and last time we talked something about supply of homes under $150.
And that's what this map right here is depicting. You don't have really any circulation within your lowest price cohorts, and therefore there simply aren't those loans to originate to the lowest price cohorts.
They have to go live somewhere.
Right. And where can they afford to live? Yeah.
You could probably build a house for $85,000 concessions from the city and other groups to do things.
Well, we got about $75,000 concessions.
No, I don't mean that kind of concessions. I mean backing off codes, regulations, other things. I know groups that have tried that. You go buy infill lots, you start to bring down the cost, and then if you go through the regulatory red tape, you don't back off on some of the codes, and you can back off on some of the codes. All right, some of you tried that here. What we hope to talk about this afternoon are solutions. We're going to say, look, can we do overlay districts? Can we go and do a PUD? Can we make the rules and regulations in this area different? And if we can, maybe we can get some private investors, maybe some P3s involved, charitable organizations, others involved in getting something done. That's what we're going to talk about this afternoon.
Yes, sir. I believe you had a question.
First-time homeowner program? They give you like silent seconds?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I defer to the experts.
Oh, yes, sir, in the back.
Sure. I'm Gary also, I'm with the Housing Authority. We've actually kicked off a infill housing program. Houses located in buying and needing lots at this point. And talked to the city for 3 or 4 years about getting some of these lots, and they just buy. So I've quite frankly given up on the city, and I'm buying and I'm paying full tax. All the fees that everybody else pay, and to do this from a governmental entity. Do this is encourage that development. About 1,200, 1,300 square feet.
They're for sale?
No, they are at fair market rate. I know it's not, but that's what it costs to build it. For the rain. I understand.
You got the lot, you got the tax fees, you got all that.
Let me tell you, the house itself is $147,000. That's the house. And
Just the structure.
that's the structure. That doesn't count the lot, that doesn't count tax, it doesn't count any of those things. So you start trying to work backwards, and that's what it costs.
So what are your ideas for? will buy lots and subdivide three. They can work with the city, subdivide. Then you get three long. Stay within. That's how they meet affordability. So, are there?
There's a couple of things that might help with some of the doing with the infill. We're obviously acquiring some lots that are not a lot to be done with them, but they are so narrow. So a little bit of variance but the real thing is that a conscious decision that our effort was we purposely went in very, very high quality. We had built houses for half the money. Maybe we could have. Our concern was that would not help revitalize. That's going to take a neighborhood that's already and help rebuild and revitalize others to develop. I heard a comment that there's no way to have a comp in the neighborhood if somebody buys a house and sell it. Got that comp now that I'm putting into these neighborhoods. If I don't sell it, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And it's not there for foot.
And there's capacity to your point. When you subdivide the lots, there's a capacity issue. And so you can't, if you build another cab, it's costing you.
Same time that the city did that, they were also improving infrastructure.
Right. The city was improving infrastructure.
City improved the infrastructure first, and then the developers came in with that strategy. So yes, agree.
Yes.
There needs to be a leader with that infrastructure, and then guideline changes. And now we've got a program.
I think.
The lack of comps you can overcome. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of older neighborhoods being. Yeah, they got the same problem. The initial pioneering house doesn't have comps for the initial 3 or 4. So what you do is in that PP3, the banks have to participate as CRA and then ignore the comps. They don't need the appraiser. They can put those loans in their CRA account. They can carry the loans, and then everybody's praying like hell that it works. But then if it does, it'll magnify itself. And then after a while, you've got 4, 5, or 6 comps, and you don't have to CRA.
And technically, ours will be comp because we are.
Yeah, or you get an not-for-profit subsidy. Basically, we're putting our money in there. The lot availability is these tax foreclosure lots.
I bought a couple of foreclosure lots and actually driving the neighborhood to see a lot for sale, go buy it.
Yeah, but the infill, like Gerald was describing, a bigger tract subdividing it down. That's where you need some help with the city and the planning, allow that density, item density.
I'm more likely going the other way with what I'm finding. The lots are so small that I'm taking.
No, you're going the wrong direction.
I think tiny houses are the new trend.
Okay.
Tiny houses.
I think. I think we had one question from the lady in the back.
Yes, you said
A clearinghouse where organizations can, yes, I'm doing this, and there's a coordinating effort.
Okay, I think we have. Yeah. I think we have one last question in the back. And as we said, we learn more from you than you learn from us. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you very much.